I thought it would be fun to share with you guys every single read aloud that we have ever done in our homeschool. These are all chapter books, and I have kept a list of every book that we have done, starting from when my daughter was in kindergarten until now, and we have been homeschooling for 7 years, so I have a lot of books to show you. I'm going to make this in several parts, so it's not too much at once. So I'm going to break these videos up into the years of school that we have done. So this is going to be our first year of homeschool that we have done. So these books were from kindergarten for my daughter. She was 5 years old, and this was the first time that she had ever sat down and listened to a chapter book. I had been reading to her entire life out of picture books. She was used to sitting down and listening for a long time, but she had never listened to a chapter book before, so this was something new for her. So her very first chapter book ever was Little House in the Big Woods. And so when we first started, like I said, she was in kindergarten, she was 5 years old, and she couldn't last too long, her attention span. She maybe lasted like half of a chapter at first, but she soon got used to reading a chapter a day, and sometimes two. We eventually worked up to 2 chapters a day, but at first we started off with about 1 chapter a day. So the Little House books are very popular. They have wonderful illustrations by Garth Williams, and I'm sure you guys have all heard about the Little House books. So this is the first one, and we just really enjoyed it. And I do have to apologize to the state of these books. My daughter has been reading them, and my son now also has been reading these books for years now, and they're just well-loved books. So this was our first book. We really enjoyed it. Sometimes in the Little House books there are some long descriptions, and sometimes we'll skip those really long descriptions, but otherwise we enjoy these very much. So this was our very first book, Little House in the Big Woods, and then we went right into the second Little House book, Little House on the Prairie. So I liked these. These were a good starting book for my daughter as far as chapter books, because there are a lot of illustrations. So every page or two there are more illustrations. So that helped her transition to the chapter books, and we did continue reading picture books as well. So that is what this is like. And of course these are all, the Little House books are based on what really happened, although some of it's fictionalized somewhat, but is based on true events. So this is the second Little House book. That was our second book ever that we read together in our homeschool. Then we read Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, another very popular and classic children's book. Garth Williams did the illustrations in this book as well. I'm sure you all are familiar with Charlotte's Web. Lots of illustrations, and it's not hard to understand at all. So that was our third book, Charlotte's Web. Then we read The World of Pooh, and this contains all of the Winnie the Pooh stories that there are. So this is the entire collection. So this is the complete Winnie the Pooh and the House at Pooh Corner. So these are just fun. Lots of illustrations, and of course everybody loves Winnie the Pooh. So that's what these look like. Next we read James Harriet's Treasury for Children, and I love the James Harriet books. I have read them all, and these ones were kind of made more simple for the children to understand. These are taken from his some of the stories from his adult books and made for children, and the illustrations and the paintings in here are wonderful. So this is it's almost like a picture book a little bit, but there's a lot more words. So we read it as a chapter book. So my daughter really enjoyed all of the illustrations and the paintings here and the stories. This is just wonderful. Wonderful book. So again, that's James Harriet's Treasury for children. So the next book that we read was Heidi. And I found out after I had read it that there is a lot of abridged versions out there, and we happened to end up with unabridged, so I was happy with that. So again, very popular classic children's book, and I would have to say this one was a bit harder for my daughter to understand. She was 5 at the time, and there's not as many illustrations, and it is a, you know, the sentences are a bit longer because it is an older book. She liked it, but I think it was a little harder for her to understand, but she did enjoy it. And I did too. So there's a lot of versions that you can get of this book, and some have a lot more illustrations. This one doesn't have very many. But again, this is a really good book. I probably, if I were to do it over again, I wouldn't read it in kindergarten. I'd probably wait till like 3rd or 4th or 5th grade to read it. I think the child will get more out of it at an older age, but it was still enjoyable. So that was the next book we read. And then we read Storytime with the Millers, and this is Amish Mennonite Heritage, Old-Fashioned Values and Virtues. These are just shorter stories that teach character, and they're actually pretty interesting too. So this one, after Heidi, you know, it only took a few days to read, and it was a lot lighter, but she enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it, and they teach character. Storytime with the Millers was next. And then we read Brighty of the Grand Canyon by Marguerite Henry, and I have a lot of her books on the bookshelf. This was the very first one that we've read. She writes a lot of horse stories, but this one was about the, I don't know if it was a donkey or a mule, but this was the next one we read. And I enjoy practically everything that she has written. So the next thing we read was Trumpet of the Swan, and this book is Falling to Pieces by E.B. White, and this one was a big hit. We really enjoy Trumpet of the Swan. Again, another classic children's book. And I like these illustrations. They've come out with a new edition that has different illustrations, but I like these original ones better. So Trumpet of the Swan. Then we read Mr. Popper's Penguins. This book is not too long. It's just fun and easy to understand. It's just kind of funny about a man who had some penguins in his house for a while. It's just funny. I like these illustrations. So, Mr. Popper's Penguins. Then we continued on with the Little House series with Farmer Boy, and this is about Almanzo, the man that Laura married, but he's just a boy in here. But this is a great book. Love it. Great pictures by Garth Williams again, and it's just really neat to see how people lived back in these days, and actually how much work they did. They worked a lot. The kids worked a lot. Almanzo was like 9 in here. Again, any long descriptions we might skip over, but in the Little House books, but really love these Little House books. And the last book we read for our first year of homeschool was Orville Mouse at the Opera House. Kind of a short little book. It's a little bit silly, but my daughter liked it anyway. Not too long, not too many chapters. It's about a little mouse that lived in an opera house and his little adventures there. So that was all that we read for kindergarten for my daughter. And in my next video, I'm going to show you what we read in our second year of homeschool when my daughter was in first grade. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day.